Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Safer Business Teams 101, The Secrets to Extending Agility to the Entire Enterprise, brought to you by Icon Agility Services in partnership with Scaled Agile. My name is Alyssa Hamilton. I am Icon's marketing manager and will be your moderator for today. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. The first is we will be recording this webinar and we'll be sending it out in an email approximately 24 hours from now. And the second is if you have any questions at all throughout the webinar, please type them into the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen. We'll collect and address these questions in the last 15 minutes of this webinar. Okay, I'm now going to turn it over to Deema and Saahil to introduce themselves and begin the presentation.
Hello, everyone. This is Deema Dajani from Scaled Agile. I am pleased to be here with you today. My role is a transformation and SPCT advisor, and I will be sharing with you a portion of this presentation. Saahil.
Thanks, Deema. My name is Saahil Panikar. I am super excited to be here with you guys today. I am an enterprise transformation lead for Icon Agility Services as well as an SPCT. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to talk to you guys about business agility.
Wonderful. So let's get us started then. We've prepared some material for you. First, we want to introduce you on SAFE's latest thinking that came with 5.0 about business agility. So why business agility in SAFE? And then really weaving it into what that means into having business agile teams and where SAFE stands on there. Saahil is going to take us through the second half to address some common myths about business agility and business agile teams in particular. The first being agile is for software only. The second being agile business teams cannot be cross-functional. And then finally, there's a myth about business work not being conducive to agility. And then we'll bring it back home with a quick conclusion and a Q&A section. So starting out, we have a quote from Mick Kirsten in his latest book, Project to Product, which has really influenced a lot of our positioning in SAFE 5.0, where Mick reminds us that we're entering a new era, and it's the era of large-scale software delivery, even in industries that are not traditionally associated with software. So for us to thrive, we need to have a different mindset. Pardon me. He reminds us some of his research where we have gone in the Western world through multiple industrial revolutions, from the Industrial Revolution, railways, age of steel, mass production, and then currently we've been in this cycle that's literally generational, called the age of software and digital, where many companies are identifying as technology or software companies, even though traditionally they are not. Companies like John Deere, for instance, which they create tractors and combines for agriculture. And they see themselves as a software company. So in such an age, there is always a point of inflection where we are moving from the initial installation and early adoption period of this new technology. In our case, it's software and digital. And then we transition over to the deployment period where it becomes the new normal. The hypothesis is we are well into that inflection point for the age of software. And the reason we think we are there already is a couple of examples. For instance, BMW's CEO announced that more than half of their R&D staff will be software developers, not automotive engineers or production folks. Amazon merged with Whole Foods, and now they're a food company, and they're also venturing into all sorts of other industries, including healthcare and banking. Market cap of Tesla has exceeded the market cap of Ford Automotive, who produce a significantly higher amount of cars. And now, to my surprise, Apple is the world's largest watchmaker. So there's many indications that companies that are doing large-scale software and doing it well are well under their way to shape disruption and survive the shifts in our age. The key finding behind this thinking is that we are in many organizations still operating or embracing operating models that come from prior eras. You know, Taylorism, in terms of the management theory, it's still permeating in many hierarchical organizations that we have, and many other examples in the world of portfolio management and project management, etc., where our core operational processes are still reflecting older errors and not reflecting the new digital adaptive age that we're in. So we started to look at different sources for inspiration. How do we marry the two worlds? I mean, the key construct that we have is a corporate hierarchy in how we're structured. You know, you start out as a startup firm where people wear many hats, but as these companies grow and the numbers grow from the tens to the hundreds to the thousands to the hundreds of thousands of employees, clearly a natural hierarchy is going to form. And that functional hierarchy does serve a purpose. It gives us robustness. It gives us areas of expertise. You have experts in finance and experts in HR and marketing, as well as software. How do we shift and adapt to this digital age without entirely blowing up the hierarchy? We're not looking to do so. And then we've introduced in the Agile community more of a networked model or networked organization where we form cross-functional, cross-domain teams to accomplish faster delivery of value. So how do we take this network, these network teams, and marry them with a functional hierarchy? And this is where we feel SAFe 5.0 is playing a very strong role in kind of tying the two worlds together, saying we're not going to diminish one or the other. The two will coexist, and they will coexist along the lines of the framework of SAFe. It also forced us in SAFe to recognize that we need to move beyond the technology software delivery in our organizations. Agility and lean agile framework need to accommodate, or not accommodate, they need to be able to support an adaptive organization that is covering both business and technology, both your delivery network and your functional hierarchy. And also John Cotter's book, which was referenced in the earlier slide, Accelerate, gives us a hint. He introduced the term a dual operating model. So what you're looking at in the slide is exactly it. We're looking at a dual operating model where business operations and technology delivery are coexisting together in an adaptive system. So SAFe 5.0 introduces or packages the components of what it means to reach this end-to-end enterprise business agility into 7 competencies. At the center of it is customer centricity. And then we have these various competencies on the right-hand side are more strategy-driven, and then on the left-hand side, more execution-driven competencies to help us achieve business agility. Specifically today, we are going to focus on team and technical agility, because at the foundation of SAFe is our team and their ability and technical practices to deliver. In this case, we will focus on agile teams that can be formed from the business. So why team and technical agility? It is the foundation of everything we deliver. And the organization's ability to thrive is entirely dependent on its ability of its teams to deliver on the solutions. Mind you, the solutions can be technology solutions, they can be business solutions, they can be a combination of the two. In the team and technical agility competency, we have introduced it as 3 different dimensions. One is your foundation of an agile team that has a certain optimal size, that has a couple of specialized roles like a product owner and a scrum master. And we've actually softened the language to showcase that now it's a team, it is no longer a dev team. So an agile team can be a business team that becomes high performing. We also have the dimension of built-in quality. So a lot of the practices that we have learned and that they're fairly effective from the software side, we are embracing them for all sorts of agile teams, including business teams. Things like establishing flow, pairing on your work, collective ownership of the work, definition of done, and automation. So that's the built-in quality dimension. And then finally, the concept of aligning multiple teams together in a team of teams or an agile release train can definitely apply partially or fully to business areas as well. And we've experienced instances where we've launched a business operational or business transformational team that sits on the agile release train that is delivering technology product or solutions. We've also had instances where it made sense to actually form an entire business agile train or team of teams. So there have been many experiments that have been run at large scale out there in the industries and in different companies with great success. So this is what we're trying to bring to your attention in this webinar, is that business agility now is actually also impacting the teams themselves. The agile team gets formulated with certain roles. Just like we did in the software world, we want these agile teams to be cross-functional. So everybody needed to deliver slivers of value on a regular basis, which means that we are likely to form agile teams from different business functions or segments to work together on a regular basis. The format that these teams embrace, it will depend on the team itself, as Saahil will take you later. Some with their work and the nature of the demand is more conducive for iterative and incremental Scrum-based methods. Others may work better in a continuous flow Kanban type mode. So definitely a lot of the learnings we had on the software side can be applied to launching business agile teams. The journey itself is kind of interesting because it will take quite a bit of understanding of the business and operational context of those teams. We would want to ease them into the shift to agile teams. First, we would introduce them to elements of the mindset of lean. How do you optimize flow, eliminate waste and handoffs in your work, introduce them to the Agile Manifesto, how to focus your work on the actual product or solution outcomes with better interaction and collaboration across folks. You may even start to formulate them as an agile team with product owners, scrum masters, right-sized for an optimal size of an agile team. That would be a good starting point for business agile teams. You would want to soon look at how would you integrate those business agile teams into bigger constructs, into bigger value streams. Do they belong as part of a broader technology and business agile release train or solution train? And we would want to have them have a firm role and interaction with such arts. And then finally, a later evolution could be looking at your actual corporate functions that may benefit from transforming not only into an agile way of working, but actually transforming the actual deliveries and offerings that they have. And here's where we start to see patterns like agile marketing evolving. Not only are agile departments organizing as agile arts, but also how they break down the marketing campaigns, how they break it into MVPs, have continuous learning, continuous adaptability, continuous delivery. All of those core concepts of marketing start to shift. Similarly, in Agile HR, we're not only talking about forming HR teams, but we're also talking about transforming the HR functions of a company, their reward systems and performance reviews, transforming the hiring practices, transforming the resolution and teaming and org design. So a lot of core functions that HR traditionally has will also shift over time. So that would be our third kind of evolution for those business agile areas. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Saahil to take us through some common myths and facts.
Thanks, Deema. I really appreciate that. Could you go ahead and move to the next slide? So before I jump into some of these myths, I do want to emphasize what Deema was just talking about was all of the motivations that we've had for bringing business agility into the enterprise and moving away from this idea of technology agility and, starting with our first myth, agile is for software, not business. In order to move to an environment where you have successful collaborative organizational flow, right, where it's not just a group of teams doing their own thing and then hopefully it adds up to value at the end, you need everybody practicing the same philosophy. You need everybody living the same way and speaking the same language. And so as we start talking about business agility, what we're talking about is not always you need to run every business team as though it's a technology team and you need to follow the same rules and do the exact same things the same way. That's not what business agility is, right? Agile is for software, not business, is one of the most common pieces of resistance that we get to talking about organizational agility and business agility. And that, by the way, is actually one of the reasons that Deema and I chose these three specific myths, is because they're common reasons that organizations give for not moving in this direction, that these are the challenges that they face and it's too difficult to overcome. And I'm here to call bullshit on all of it. Right? I'm here to tell you why these are opportunities for your organization. So Deema, can we move to the next slide, please? So Agile is for software, not business. If we look at the Agile Manifesto, right, this is the nugget of truth at the center of all of our practices of the last 20 years. We can read, we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. And that anchored us in this idea that we have to do this in software. But if you throw out that one sentence, if you just get rid of that one introductory sentence that doesn't actually say anything about Agile, and look at the rest of the manifesto, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. None of those things are inherently unique to technology. They're not only capable of being practiced by software teams, software development teams. So if we look at the intent or the spirit of agility and say, look, for a business team to value working software over comprehensive documentation, sure, maybe it's not software, but if we look at how can we take the value or the principle of working outcomes or products or solutions or services over comprehensive documentation, you can absolutely apply that to business teams or individuals and interactions over processes and tools. I'm sure that all of you on the call today have experience with organizations where you need to get something done from HR or accounting or finance, and you get told, we have an intake process, right? you want to value the conversation. You want to value the human to human connection and say, we need to work together collaboratively with your group and my group to come up with a solution that best fits our enterprise, best fits our organization or our team of teams. So Agile inherently is practicable by anybody, right? You hear stories all the times of families using Agile to run their household and their chores. That they're not software teams, they're not developing something, but the values of collaboration and fast feedback and communication are universal. So we can look at some examples, and I've got some photos to show you on the next slide of business teams actually performing in Agile and running on an Agile release train and participating in PI planning. So this is a photo from one of our clients that had primarily business teams on this train doing their confidence vote at PI planning. But I'm actually more excited to show you the next slide. If we could jump one more, thank you. So this is Scaled Agile's actual PI planning process. And so we were having some conversations early when we were putting together the material for this webinar about how much can we show from our clients, and Scaled Agile was kind enough to say we can use their materials. So we're going to see quite a few Scaled Agile examples over the rest of this webinar. So I want to say thank you to Deema and the Scaled Agile folks for allowing us to do that. But this is not unique to Scaled Agile themselves. This is common and practicable and applicable across many organizations. But we can see, right, in the Scaled Agile organization, there are over 100 people on this train, and out of all their teams, only one is a software development team. All the others are learning and communications and marketing and exam design and content, right? They're business teams. They create knowledge and outcomes and support business processes, and they're able to, you know, walk the walk and follow their own materials. So it's very cool. You see real people doing the work. So we're ready, thank you. So our second myth is that Agile business teams cannot be cross-functional, right? You hear all the time that the definition of an Agile team is a cross-functional team that defines, builds, tests, and possibly deploys. And so how can a business team be cross-functional, right? How can they own defining and building? And they can't. The truth is you just have to change the way you think about the solution. So the fact is cross-functional business teams create higher quality solutions with a whole product focus, right? And that is a big deal. I'm gonna take a quick plug for the Agile product management class that Scaled Agile offers. It talks a lot about the material and the value behind successful product management. And one of the big concepts or takeaways from that course is this idea of whole product. Right? And so we're no longer trying to focus on making one piece of a solution better, right? We don't want to say you own networking and APIs and you own this customer-facing feature and you own that customer-facing feature and you just do your job to make it better, right? We create end-to-end solutions that focus on customer-focused journeys and allow them to have a positive experience end-to-end, doing everything with the customer in mind and creating products that satisfy their needs all the way through. And the only way to do that is to have the right perspective. So how do you get the right perspective? By bringing all of the people who need to participate to the table, right? And this, I mean, I know that this is not a new concept, but we struggle in practice sometimes to make this happen, right? We need to say, well, why does HR need to be involved now? Or why does legal need to get involved? Well, I don't know about you, but I've had the experience of spending 6 months developing something that was a major initiative for the organization I was working with at the time, only to finish and then put it through like a compliance review after development was over, and we found out that it's not compliant with a couple of international markets, and so we don't have a product that we can release. If we had brought compliance to the table sooner, we would have caught that much earlier and we wouldn't have lost almost 2 full PIs of development. Right? And so instead of creating this scenario where I do my piece and then pass it over the fence to the next team. Let's bring everybody to the table. And that not only allows for faster flow of value with higher quality, it makes your people better, right? And that's something that's worth investing in, because now the people that sit on my cross-functional business team start to have an understanding. They don't necessarily become experts, but they start to have an understanding of the work that everybody else is doing, and are able to speak to things like, hey, I remember last time we did this, we had that compliance issue. What are we doing about it this time? Is it going to be any different? Do we need to maybe start practicing some lean compliance practices and build compliance in up front, just like we want to build quality in? So you can start to think about cross-functional business teams being the answer to specific skill sets and competencies, right? You don't need every business team in your organization to have every skill set on it, but you need every skill set to be represented, right? As we build T-shaped teams that allow us to say, hey, we have 1 or 2 teams that have that skill set on it, so they're able to handle these issues and maybe even pair, right? I'm not talking about individuals. You can even pair teams, right? Pair another team with another team so that they learn this skill set, or at least learn enough to be able to move forward while waiting for a true expert to become available. Can we move to the next slide? So here, again, from Skilled Agile, you can see an example of their program board from PI planning. Again, we have a cross-functional group of people who are focused on business-oriented teams, and look at the dependencies that they've identified. You see all that pink on the program board, right? This allows us to identify the opportunities for collaboration, and as we iterate on our value stream design and our team composition, we start to look at where were the major dependencies and how often did those come up. And maybe we'll see that our design is not right, and it's important, or our design could be improved. And it is very important to recognize that if you move to a business agility model with cross-functional business teams, I guarantee you 100% you will not get it right on the first try. That does not mean it wasn't worth doing or that you should stop, right? If you didn't get it right, iterate, be agile, and try again. You'll see that no matter what the work you're doing is, whether it is marketing or finance related or compliance, documentation, change management, whatever you might be doing, you will find that your teams still need to engage with other members of their domain or business function. You will find that you still need to maintain those communities of practice that allow knowledge sharing and best practices and organizational standards to be distributed across an organization, right? That's never going to go away. But if you understand that the purpose of the Agile release train structure is to maximize value delivery while minimizing dependencies, you'll understand that you need to bring people together regardless of their reporting relationships, right? And start thinking about who are the people that need to collaborate every day in order for us to be successful, right? Who are the daily working relationships that we need to maintain in order to move as effectively as possible through our systems, right? Our systems tend to be the biggest limiting factor to what we do. And so that actually takes us right into our last common myth or resistance to business agility, is this idea that, well, you know, software teams can plan their work, but business work is variable and can't be planned. So I will say first, not all business work is unknown. Very, very directly, if we can move to the next slide, I'll show you 2 examples of program boards from trains that are primarily business team driven, right? I would say that 90% of the teams on each of these trains are business teams. In fact, the program board from the team on the right is 100% business teams. And look at how much they were able to plan in advance, right? Not all work is unknown. Not only is it knowable, we have big initiatives that we're working on and plan up front. we have transformation initiatives. We can talk about automation, or we can talk about strategic upgrades, platform changes, right? There's work that can be done to plan what you're doing. And look how highly dependent they were, right? There's a lot of dependencies on both of these program boards, which means that business teams, as much as we believe that they can't be cross-functional and that they're independent of each other, they need to collaborate a lot, right? In order to move a product or solution all the way through from one end of our system to the other, we need business teams communicating daily, right? We need them to understand that applying systems thinking is a valuable tool for everybody in the organization and not just technology, that when we make changes to our system over here, it impacts things over there. We will see that, can we go back for 1 second, Deema? Sorry, thank you. When we look at something like this, right, it really does highlight the opportunity for increased collaboration, right? And when we talk about that, it doesn't just need to be in terms of cross-functional business teams, but you might find that as you start your journey, you'll take individual functional business teams, right, and just be agile. Remember Deema's slide with the 3 steps to business agility, right? Step 1 was just be agile, right? Get the individual business team practicing in an agile way and put them onto a train, right? Have them collaborate, participate in Scrum as Scrums, and be an active, engaged member with your dependency management. Okay, we can move to the next slide. So I want to make it, sorry?
No, I laughed because there's a little bit of a story behind the slide. Sahil, I happened to be at with a wonderful company, and it was their finance group, and they challenged me and they said, yes, this agile stuff is all wonderful, but it can never apply to finance. So overnight, I texted with our head of finance, and I said, hey, Jeremy, can you send me a couple of your epics? So the next morning, I came in armed with these 2 epics to show them how finance work can actually be planned in an agile manner.
Which is great, right? So that's kind of exactly the whole point of this slide, which is to say, here's a real example of how business work can be done in an agile way, right? So these are, Deema, these are real examples from your company of planning finance work in features and stories. Is that right?
Correct.
That's cool. That's really cool, guys. So you can see that it's possible, right? We look at something like create the 2020 operating plan, which is an epic that's going to take a little bit of time. And so we have a feature in it for the financial plan. And there are many stories that are deliverable by the finance team, right? There's nobody else who's doing this work, but it allows them to think about, what do we do that is value added? And can we do vertical slicing of our work instead of horizontal slicing, right? And then the same thing on the other side, right? We have another epic for GDPR readiness, right? Again, very cool. And then there's acceptance criteria. So not only do we have some way to break down the work, we can still write acceptance criteria that tell us this was done at the right level of quality, that this is releasable. I love it. I think it's very cool. So the last thing I want to say to you about business work is variable and cannot be planned. Let's say it is variable. Deema, can we go to the next slide? If our business, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. There's one more slide. This is another real example of business teams planning their work with PI objectives, committing to real outcomes. So if you can, on your own screen, blow up on this image, you'll see that the teams are, like I said, marketing and learning and licensing, right? So there's no software development happening here, but it's teams that are committing to business outcomes based on the work that they need to do to deliver on the strategic priorities for Scaled Agile. It's very cool. So here we are, right? So let's assume that business work is variable and cannot be planned. Well, guess what? There's a form of Agile for that, and it's called Kanban. I hope that my level of man, I want to be very clear that when people say business work is variable and can't be planned, I want to slap them with the Kanban board. We figured this out a long time ago, right? This is not something that is new or particularly creative or innovative. Run your business teams with Kanban. Or in some cases, if you need to align to an Agile release train, you might use some combination of Scrumban, right? Some hybrid between Scrum and Kanban. But the idea is plan the work that can be planned in advance, reserve some capacity for the work that can't, and then intake it, have your ad hoc plannings, and then make it flow through your system while making it visible, right? This is not rocket science, it's Kanban. So the last point I will make before we move into our Q&A is the idea that for most business teams, like the teams that you think of when you think of a business team, I would guarantee that they're already kind of inherently being agile. They just don't have the framework or the structure in place to say this is a process they're following. But pick a business function, HR, finance, legal, whatever, right? They have some planned work, some strategic initiatives that they're delivering on, but I guarantee you that they will respond immediately to changing market conditions or specific incidents that are happening in your business environment, right? And so the idea of responding to something, right? Public relations is a great example of this, right? And changing your priorities to address an issue, that's agile, right? That is the agile process at work. And so if we can bring people along with this idea that business teams are already inherently agile and we just need to give them the structure to collaborate and communicate with us and do it in a way that brings them to the table sooner and allows for better communication and alignment towards shared goals, this is not a hard sell. I think that's it on my lecture about our myths and facts. So before we take questions, I do want to tell you a little bit about Icon, Icon Agility Services. We've been around since 1992. We are the first ever Safe Goal partner. We have the most SPCTs in the market and one Safe Fellow. We've led successful Safe implementations for major companies like Vantiv, now WorldPay, American Express, Sally Mae. We have experts in all of the major business agility competencies. We've trained many students in Safe, and most importantly, we're really good at this, right? We're really good at bringing people to the table to talk about the value of whole product solutions and collaboration between teams in your entire business in order to deliver value that quickly. So if you could, one more slide, Deema. If you are on a transformation journey of your own, Icon has an approach that we believe will help you to get there, right? This is our collaborative transformation approach. You'll see that the markers in gray are assessment of the current state to align to a future state. Orange markers represent determining a transformation plan or next steps for the future. And blue is the actual implementation and execution. And so while we recognize that every client is unique and your specific circumstances will be different, the approach we take is tailored to help you come up with the right steps for your transformation, but in a way that is easily accessible to you and you'll understand what value we'll be providing and when. So please feel free to reach out to the Icon sales team for more information if you could use some support on your Safe or business agility transformations. And now I'd love to take questions on anything you have that we've talked about over the last 40 minutes or so.
Okay, so this is Alyssa again. Just to remind everyone, you can submit questions in the attendee control panel at the bottom. And our first question for Deema and Saahil is, how do you operationalize this continued communication when development teams are not co-located with the business? How do you do it when dev teams are spread throughout the globe?
Deema, you mind if I take this one?
Sure, go for it.
Great. So, I mean, the very quick and easy answer is, how do you do it when dev teams are spread across the globe and you need your dev teams to talk to each other, right? It's not really any different. So what I would say is that your organization needs to invest in the tools to communicate across your organizational your geographical boundaries. And that might be investing in video conferencing rooms and providing everybody with collaboration tools like your Agile Lifecycle Management tool, your Rally or Jira for that, and then a collaboration method like Zoom or WebEx or GoToMeeting or Slack for IMing and video calling, but create the environment where people understand that, yes, communication is a little bit harder when we're not in the same office, we're not in the same room or the same time zone, but we have the tools in place to make it as easy as it can possibly be in this situation. And unless you want to move, let's accept that this is the reality and start creating that environment where we need to prioritize video calling over sending an email, right? And we need to prioritize quick decisions around short conversations rather than scheduling a meeting a month in advance because that's the first time that everybody's calendars are free. And so the decision we need to make is going to get delayed for 30 days for no other reason than that we can't get everybody in the same room, right? So let's move away from scheduling meetings that are super far in the future and start creating opportunities for quick collaboration through tools that are designed for that.
I'd also add to it is let's take a step back. What is it that ultimately we want to deliver, right? Our business teams want to deliver certain pieces of value on certain business solutions. So do our technology teams and arts. And ultimately, we want everybody, regardless of where they're sitting, to be delivering on a company or portfolio strategy that will help us achieve the best impact and value in the market for our business and for our customers. So it actually helps to get together on the regular cadence and engage our business groups and business functions, even if it's representation, during our PI planning, program increment planning, that the Agile release trains are going to do and embrace. Also integrating how we view the highest level investment decisions in our portfolio. Being able to say, given our strategy, what should be the newest things we need to focus on in order for us to achieve that? And when we ask that question that way, then we're ensuring that not only technology delivery teams and arts are engaged, but also business teams and arts. So it's not unusual to say, hey, we're having a strategy pivot, and we need to focus on a new product line, a new market. Maybe we need to focus on a new strategy like cloud or digital. Don't only include the technology folks in the execution and planning of such work, but also include the business operational functions. Who do we have in the room from HR, from finance, from marketing? Who do we have in the room from the business operations side, and what implications will they have? And they can articulate the implications or the changes they need to impact in order to support this new direction in the form of features and stories. So literally, you're having the whole business end-to-end inclusive of technology planned together in order to accommodate a strategy pivot. So yes, look at tooling, and yes, look at opportunities for real collaboration so that your whole business is planning together.
Okay, thank you. Next question. How do you get people motivated to organize around value? And if people are not passionate about organizing around value, how do we address that?
Go ahead, Deema.
So organizing around value, it's the way SAFE defines it. We're not necessarily talking about a physical reorganization where you change reporting lines. We recognize that people, when they join a company or an organization, you need a home, you need a place to nurture your expertise. You were hired for a particular skill. You know, maybe you're an actuary, maybe you're a marketer, maybe you're a finance expert, right? You need to nurture that skill and growth within that area. And you also need almost a community of like-minded skill and competent people to be able to bounce ideas off of. So we're not necessarily changing your placement from being part of the finance team or the actuarial team, etc. What we are saying is for persistent value streams where we're constantly delivering solutions, and I'm softening the term solutions because it can be a mix of business and tech solutions, being able to virtually join a cross-functional team or group there so that we optimize on that delivery of that business solution in the fastest amount sustainably possible. So it's a virtual organization where we're not changing your reporting structure, but day in, day out, your planning and execution on that solution is part of a cross-functional team. And this is where we start to really play with the notion that Cotter defined of a dual operating model. You still have your hierarchy, you're still part of the hierarchy. However, at the same time, you're part of a virtual group or virtual team that is able to deliver cross-functionally. And the motivation there, going back to the person that asked the question, the motivation is think of all the initiatives that you've had to work on that got delayed or stalled because of the high degree of dependence on other functions or other departments. Imagine if you had a person from each of those functions that you need all on one virtual team, and the 5 of you, the 8 of you are getting together on a regular basis, working together, pairing, planning it, delivering it, demoing that solution together. It's highly motivating to remove all that delay and all that frustration.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What are the 2 most impactful things that business teams can change to jumpstart their Agile journey?
So, Saahil, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I got it. Absolutely. So I love lists, right? So now I'm sitting here like, okay, what are the 2 most impactful things? The very first thing that came to me was the idea that as a business team, what I see most often is business teams waiting to be engaged by somebody, right? Whether it's a new product offering or something, they're just, they'll come to us when they need us, right? So let's start to be a little bit more proactive and start to collaborate more and communicate. And if we can get to a place where we're using something like the SAFE framework to maintain a portfolio roadmap that has a vision, that has potential future epics on it for the next 2 years, and a solution roadmap that has some features broken down as well for the next 18 months or so, we can start to look at that and use that as a tool to say, hey, this is coming up. Let's go talk to them now and find out what we need to do in order to get involved in the process. So first and foremost, try to be a little bit more proactive. The second thing I would do is start thinking about making your work as the business team more visible, right? Because I can guarantee you right now that your technology teams have no clue what your finance team does all day. They have no clue what your HR team is doing. They don't understand what demands are constantly being placed on their time. So if you make your work more visible, people will stop expecting that you'll just drop whatever you're doing to work on their stuff when they need you. Right? And so again, it just comes back to create transparency around enterprise priorities. So we need to be able to say, is this really the right thing for us to be working on? And are we doing it in a way that isn't hurting anybody else in the company?
Okay. Thank you. Next question. Have you seen a situation where the art product manager role is decentralized among the different business teams like compliance, security, finance, etc. How can this be overcome?
So one of the things in SAFE that we ourselves evolved, and you'll notice a shift between prior versions of SAFE and I think starting in 4.0, where we no longer had a distinct separate role called product manager. It's a small nuance, but it shifted to product management, plural, because we recognize in many domains, the actual solution, the actual value being delivered, it is not entirely wholly owned by one area. So we encourage, as we advise certain groups when they form their Agile release trains, we encourage them to think of all the business areas that will be able to effectively weigh in on the value and the shape of the product and the product strategy that this is getting formed on. And let's have them part of this product management team, right, that's supporting the art. So it's not unusual to actually, I know Saahil earlier talked about a compliance example. It's not unusual to have a compliance manager or officer as part of your product management team. For one thing, they may introduce some features into the program backlog, just like the rest of the product management team, and that are compliance specific. For another thing, they can also weigh in on the risk assessment of certain new features that are getting introduced. You know, how would they be perceived from a compliance perspective, right? What kind of non-functional requirements can we add to such features or epics so that they are compliant with our various regulatory agencies?
So the one thing I would add to that is